The first thing Cassidy Moore saw when the black SUVs arrived was not the headlights. It was the way the snow stopped looking peaceful. One moment, it had been falling softly over the cracked parking lot of the Breakwater Motel, covering the rusted railings, the sagging ice machine, and the faded blue sign that blinked vacancy like a dying heartbeat. The next moment, the storm turned violent, kicked sideways by the engines of 6 black vehicles rolling in from the coastal road. Cassidy stood behind the front desk, one hand wrapped around a chipped coffee mug, the other resting near the old brass key rack behind her. The motel was supposed to be empty. Room 4 had an elderly truck driver asleep with the television on. Room 8 had a traveling nurse who had checked in at midnight and asked for extra blankets. Room 11 had a man who paid cash and smelled like cigarettes and fear. But Room 13 had been locked for 10 years. And every winter, when the wind hit the ocean hard enough, Cassidy could swear she heard someone whispering behind that door. The first SUV stopped directly in front of the lobby. A man stepped out. He wore a black wool coat that did not move in the wind. Snow gathered on his shoulders, but he didn't brush it away. He was tall, broad, calm in a way that felt unnatural, like storms were things that happened around him, never to him. Behind him, men in dark suits climbed from the other vehicles. Not tourists. Not cops. Not anyone who needed a room. Cassidy's pulse tightened. The bell above the lobby door gave a weak jingle when the man stepped inside. Cold air rushed in behind him. For a second, all Cassidy heard was the buzzing neon sign, the ticking wall clock, and the low hum of the vending machine near the hallway. Then the man looked at her. His eyes were dark, steady, and terrifyingly quiet. "Room 13, he said. Cassidy's fingers tightened around the mug. "We don't rent that room. I didn't ask to rent it." His voice was low, controlled, almost polite. That made it worse. Cassidy forced herself to breathe. "It's sealed." "I know." A man behind him moved toward the key rack. Cassidy stepped sideways, blocking it before she could think. Every man in the lobby went still. The one in the black coat looked at her for a long moment, as if people did not usually place themselves between him and what he wanted. "You don't know who I am," he said. Cassidy swallowed. "I know enough." Something shifted in his expression. Not amusement, not anger. Interest. "Then you know you should move." "No." The word came out softer than she wanted, but it held. The lobby seemed to shrink around it. One of his men reached beneath his coat. The man in black lifted 2 fingers without looking back. And the movement stopped immediately. Cassidy saw it then, the kind of power that did not need volume. He didn't have to shout. He didn't have to threaten. His silence was an order. He walked closer to the desk. The smell of snow and expensive leather reached her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Cassidy." "Last name?" She hesitated. His eyes sharpened. "Moore," she said. For the first time, his face changed. Only slightly, but Cassidy saw it. A flicker. Recognition. Danger. He leaned one hand on the counter. His cuff slipped back, just enough for her to see a silver ring on his finger. Engraved with a black crest she did not recognize, but somehow feared. "Cassidy Moore," he repeated, like her name was a door he had just found locked. "Give me the key." She looked past him, toward the hallway. Room 13 was at the very end. Around the corner, behind a fire door that never opened cleanly. There was a board nailed across it. A chain. 2 deadbolts. 1 brass key hidden behind the desk in an envelope her uncle had once told her never to touch. The same uncle who disappeared 3 years ago. Cassidy lifted her chin. "No." The man studied her. Most people, she imagined, would have begged by now. Cried. Bargained. Maybe apologized for breathing too loudly. Cassidy was afraid. Her body knew it. Her hands knew it. Her stomach knew it. But something older than fear stood up inside her. The man's gaze dropped to her trembling fingers, then returned to her eyes. "You're terrified," he said quietly. "Yes. But you still refuse." "Yes." For a moment, the storm battered the windows so hard the glass rattled. Then he leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Do you know what happens to people who tell Viktor DeLuca no?" Cassidy's breath caught. Everyone in Maine knew the name DeLuca, even if they pretended they didn't. Dock workers lowered their voices when they said it. Police reports went missing when it appeared. Men who owed the wrong debt sometimes vanished into the gray Atlantic fog. Viktor DeLuca was not a guest. He was a warning people gave each other. Cassidy forced herself not to step back. "No," she whispered. "But I know what happened the last time someone opened that room. That stopped him. Behind him, one of his men looked up. Viktor's voice went colder. What happened? Cassidy shook her head. I was 11. I remember screaming. I remember blood on the snow. I remember my mother telling me not to look back. The lobby fell into a silence so complete the old building seemed to hold its breath. Viktor looked at her differently now. Not softer. Never soft. But the cruelty in his stillness had changed shape. Before he could speak, the front windows exploded inward. Gunfire shattered the lobby lights. Cassidy screamed and dropped behind the counter as glass rained across the floor. The coffee mug broke beside her knee. Men shouted. Tires screeched outside. The neon sign sparked. And died. Viktor moved faster than any man in a coat that expensive should have been able to move. He vaulted the counter, grabbed Cassidy by the waist, and pulled her against the inside wall just as bullets tore through the wood where she had been standing. His body covered hers. Solid, unshaking, one hand pressed to the back of her head, shielding her from the falling glass. Stay down, he said. Cassidy's cheek was against his coat. She could hear his heartbeat. Slow, controlled, as if violence was not chaos to him, as if it was home. His men returned fire from inside the lobby, but Viktor didn't move away from her. Not until the gunfire paused. Not until one of his men shouted that the attackers had pulled back to the road. Only then did he lift his head. Cassidy looked up at him. Snow blew through the broken windows behind them. Red taillights flashed outside. The old motel lobby was ruined, covered in glass and bloodless violence, and Viktor DeLuca was kneeling over her like the only thing in the room worth saving. His jaw tightened. Who knows you're here? He asked. Cassidy stared at him. I work here. That isn't what I asked. I don't know. He looked toward the hallway, toward room 13, then back at her. His hand was still at the back of her head, his fingers tangled lightly in her hair. When he realized it, he pulled away slowly, as if touching her had become dangerous in a way bullets were not. You're coming with me, he said. Cassidy pushed herself upright. No, I'm not. His eyes cut back to hers. You almost died. Because you came here. Because someone else knew I was coming. Then leave. One of his men, older, scarred at the jaw, stepped closer. Boss. We need to move. Viktor didn't look away from Cassidy. Not without the key. Cassidy shook her head. You can threaten me all you want. I'm not opening that room. I'm not threatening you. You brought 6 cars and men with guns. And they weren't enough. The words landed cold. Outside, the storm thickened until the parking lot became a blur of headlights and white wind. Viktor turned to his men. Lock down the property. No one enters. No one leaves. Cassidy's heart dropped. You can't do that. He glanced at her. I just did. By 2 a.m, the Breakwater Motel had become a fortress. Viktor's men repaired the shattered lobby windows with plywood from the maintenance shed. 2 men took the roof. 3 covered the back exit. Another disabled the security cameras and replaced them with something more advanced from a black case. Cassidy sat in the corner of the lobby wrapped in an old motel blanket, watching strangers take control of the only place that still felt familiar. Viktor stood near the broken front desk, speaking quietly into his phone. He looked like he belonged in marble penthouses and private clubs, not a dying coastal motel that smelled like bleach, coffee, and wet carpet. Yet somehow, the building changed around him. The lobby seemed less cheap with him in it, more dangerous, more cinematic, like the motel had been waiting 10 years for this exact night. Cassidy hated that she noticed. She hated more that when he looked over, her body remembered how he had shielded her. Not gently, not sweetly, possessively, like the bullets had offended him by coming near her. Viktor ended the call and walked toward her. Cassidy pulled the blanket tighter. Are you hurt? He asked. No. His eyes dropped to her knee. There was a thin cut there from the broken mug. He crouched in front of her. Cassidy stiffened. What are you doing? He took a folded white handkerchief from his pocket. Bleeding is still bleeding. It's nothing. Then hold still for nothing. His tone left no room for argument, but his hand was careful when he cleaned the cut. That unsettled her more than if he had been rough. You do this often? She asked. Clean wounds? Kidnap motel employees. His mouth almost moved. Almost. No. Lucky me. He glanced up. Their faces were too close. Close enough that she could see the faint scar near his left eyebrow. Close enough to notice he smelled faintly of smoke and winter. His gaze lowered to her mouth for half a second. Then he looked away. Room 13, he said. Cassidy exhaled sharply. You don't quit. I don't lose. That must be exhausting. This time, something like amusement flickered in his eyes. Brief. Gone. Tell me what you know. Cassidy looked toward the hallway again. The door to room 13 was not visible from the lobby, but she felt it. She always felt it. My mother worked here before me, she said. So did my uncle. This place belonged to my grandmother before she died. I grew up in the apartment upstairs. Where is your mother now? Cassidy's throat tightened. Dead. How? I don't know. Viktor watched her with a stillness that made lying feel pointless. Cassidy looked down at his handkerchief wrapped around her knee. His initials were stitched into the corner in black thread. I was 11, she said. There was a storm, not snow, rain. I woke up because someone was pounding on doors. My mother grabbed me from bed and told me not to make a sound. She took me through the back stairwell, but I saw room 13 open. What was inside? Cassidy shook her head. Viktor's voice softened by 1 degree. Cassidy. She hated the way he said her name. Like he had no right to it, yet knew exactly how to make it sound like a command and a confession at once. I saw a woman, Cassidy whispered. Not my mother. Another woman. She was crying. There were men in the room. My uncle was shouting. Then my mother covered my eyes. Viktor's expression hardened. Did you ever see that woman again? No. The next morning, room 13 was sealed. My mother told me never to ask about it again. A week later, she was gone. Gone? Police said she drove off the coastal road. And you believed them? Cassidy looked at him. I was 11. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Before he could answer, a man entered from the hallway. Boss, he said, we found fresh tracks behind the storage units. Someone was watching before we arrived. Cassidy went cold. Viktor rose slowly. Fin him. The man nodded and left. Cassidy stood. This is insane. I need to call the police. Viktor turned back to her. Half the police in this county take money from the Voss family. The who? His gaze sharpened. You really don't know. If I knew anything, I wouldn't be working nights at a motel that charges $69 for rooms with questionable plumbing. You're either very innocent, Viktor said, or very good at pretending. Cassidy stepped closer despite herself. I'm tired. I'm scared. My lobby is destroyed. Men shot at me because of you. So don't stand there and accuse me of playing games. End of you, mans. End of you. End of you, May. One of his men looked stunned that she spoke to him that way. Viktor only stared at her. Then he took 1 step closer. Cassidy held her ground. The air between them shifted. Dangerous. Charged. He was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You should be more careful, he said quietly. With what? With making me respect you. Her breath caught. For 1 suspended second, neither of them moved. Then a shout came from outside. Viktor turned immediately, the moment broken. His men dragged a man into the lobby, half frozen, struggling, wearing a motel maintenance jacket Cassidy recognized. Her stomach dropped. Eddie? Eddie Crane worked afternoons. He fixed locks badly, smoked behind the laundry room, and borrowed money he never paid back. His eyes widened when he saw her. Cass, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they were going to shoot. Viktor's entire presence changed. Cold became lethal. Cassidy took a step forward. What did you do? Eddie looked from her to Viktor. They paid me to call if anyone came asking about room 13. Who paid you? Viktor asked. Eddie swallowed. Viktor said nothing else. The silence did the work. Nikolai Voss, Eddie whispered. His people. They said the room belonged to them. They said Cassidy had something. Cassidy's blood went cold. I don't have anything. Eddie looked at her with miserable guilt. Your mother did. The lobby tilted. Viktor's eyes moved to Cassidy. What did he say? Eddie started shaking. Her mom left something. Under the floor. Behind the wall. I don't know. They just said if DeLuca came. Call them first. Cassidy backed away. Viktor turned to his men. Put him in room 4. Cassidy snapped. No. Everyone froze again. Viktor looked at her. He betrayed you. He's scared. He almost got you killed. I said no. Viktor's eyes darkened. You don't get to protect men who sell you. And you don't get to punish people in my motel. His men exchanged glances. Viktor walked toward her slowly. Cassidy expected rage. Instead, he looked almost fascinated. You think this building still belongs to you? He asked. It does. Not anymore. Cassidy stared at him. Viktor reached inside his coat and removed a folded document. He placed it on the desk. Cassidy looked down. The title blurred before her eyes. Property Transfer Agreement. Her heart stopped. "You bought it," she whispered. "This morning." "No." "Yes. You can't." "I did." Her hands curled into fists. "Why?" Viktor's expression remained unreadable. "Because men like Voss don't leave witnesses alive. And because whoever owns this motel owns what's buried in room 13. Cassidy looked at him like he had struck her. "This was my grandmother's. Now it's mine." For the first time, anger burned hotter than fear. Cassidy slapped him. The sound cracked through the lobby. Every weapon in the room shifted. Viktor raised one hand, stopping all of them without looking. His face had turned slightly from the force. Slowly, he looked back at her. Cassidy's palm stung. Her eyes burned. "I don't care who you are," she said. "You don't get to take the last thing I have." Viktor's Chaza held hers. Something dangerous moved through his eyes. Not anger. Not exactly. A kind of emotional recognition that looked almost like pain. "I take what keeps people alive," he said. "No, you take what you want." He stepped closer. His voice dropped. "Right now, those are the same thing." At dawn, the storm had not stopped. The world outside was white and gray, erased by snow and ocean fog. Viktor ordered everyone into the old motel diner attached to the lobby. The one Cassidy only opened for coffee and packaged muffins because the grill had been broken for years. His men spread maps across the counter. Cassidy stood behind the coffee machine because doing something with her hands kept her from falling apart. Viktor watched her from the far booth. She could feel his eyes even when she refused to look. She hated him. She should have hated him. He had bought her motel, brought danger to her door, and made her a prisoner in the place she had fought to keep. But every time the wind slammed the building, she remembered his body over hers, his hand at the back of her head, his voice telling her to stay down. Protection could be its own kind of threat when it came from a man like Viktor DeLuca. Cassidy poured coffee into a chipped mug and set it in front of him. He looked up. "You spit in it?" "I considered it." "Progress." She gave him a flat look. He took the mug and drank anyway. That irritated her more than it should have. Across the diner, Eddie sat guarded in a booth, face pale, hands shaking. Cassidy had insisted no one hurt him. Viktor had agreed, but only after looking at her for too long and saying, "For now." The older scarred man, whose name she had learned was Marco, brought a laptop to the booth. "We found Voss movement," Marco said. 2 boats left Portland before the storm closed the harbor. Men are staging near the old church road. Viktor's expression did not change. "He'll come before nightfall." Cassidy's stomach tightened. "For room 13? For you." She laughed once, humorless. "I'm a motel receptionist." "You're not." "I am. You were raised as one." Cassidy looked at him. Viktor leaned back, his coffee untouched now. "Your mother's name wasn't Moore." Cassidy felt her body go still. "What?" Her real name was Elena Valenti. The diner seemed to fade. "Elena Moore," Cassidy said. Her name was Elena Moore. After she ran. Ran from what? Viktor's silence told her the answer before his mouth did. From a family that wanted her dead. Cassidy gripped the edge of the counter. Viktor stood, but didn't move toward her. "Smartman. Your mother belonged to the Valenti bloodline," he said. "Old money. Old power. Before my father and Voss carved up the East Coast, the Valentis controlled the harbors from Maine to Boston." Cassidy shook her head. "No. My mother made pancakes on Sundays and cried when old movies had happy endings. She was also the last legitimate Valenti daughter." "No." Viktor's voice stayed calm. "Yes." Cassidy's chest tightened until breathing hurt. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Voss knows." "And you?" "I found out 2 days ago." She searched his face. "Why were you looking?" For the first time, Viktor looked away. Just for a second, but she saw it. "Because my father lied about the night your mother disappeared," he said. The words moved through the diner like a blade. Cassidy barely heard the coffee machine sputtering behind her. "What did your father do?" Viktor looked back at her. "He helped seal room 13. Cassidy stepped away from the counter. The emotional distance between them became physical. Viktor noticed. His jaw tightened, but he did not follow. "You knew," she whispered. "No. But your family did." "Yes. My mother died because of people like you." His expression hardened, but his eyes changed. "Yes." The honesty was worse than denial. Cassidy turned away, blinking fast. She would not cry in front of him. Not in front of the man whose family name was buried somewhere inside her childhood nightmares. Victor's voice came quietly. I came here to find out what my father hid. No, you came here to take it. At first, Cassidy looked at him sharply. He did not soften it. At first, he repeated, then I met you. Her pulse gave one painful beat. You don't get to say that like it changes anything. It changes everything. No, it doesn't. His eyes held hers across the diner. It does for me. The words were not romantic, not gentle. They sounded like a warning he did not yet understand himself. Before Cassidy could answer, the lights went out. The diner dropped into darkness. Every man moved at once. Victor reached Cassidy before she could even turn. He pulled her behind him as flashlights snapped on, and red emergency lights flickered from the hallway. A voice crackled through the old motel intercom. Cassidy froze. The intercom had not worked in years. A man's voice filled the building, smooth and foreign and cruel. Viktor DeLuca, you always did have expensive taste in broken things. Victor went completely still. Nikolai Vos. The voice continued. Give me the girl and the key. Walk away with your empire. Refuse. And I bury you in the same room your father buried her mother's truth. Cassidy's blood turned to ice. Victor looked toward the lobby speakers. His voice was calm enough to terrify. Come take her. The intercom hissed. Then Voss laughed. She is not yours. Victor's hand closed around Cassidy's wrist. Not hard, but absolute. She is under my protection. Cassidy looked at him. He did not look back. Outside, through the boarded windows, headlights appeared in the snow. More than before. A lot more. By noon, the Breakwater Motel was surrounded. Voss men watched from the tree line beyond the parking lot, dark figures moving between snow and fog. Victor's men reinforced the doors, checked weapons, whispered into radios. Cassidy sat on the floor of the upstairs apartment where she had grown up, going through boxes Victor had ordered brought down from storage. He had insisted she stay away from the windows. She had told him she did not take orders. He had stared at her for 5 seconds, then had every window boarded from the outside. Possessive protection, apparently, was still protection. Even when it made her want to scream. The apartment smelled like dust and old wood. Her mother's books were still on a shelf near the kitchen. Her uncle had never had the heart to throw them away. Cassidy opened a cardboard box labeled Elena Office. Inside were old motel receipts, faded photographs, a broken rosary, and a stack of letters tied with blue thread. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the first. The handwriting was her mother's. Cassidy read the first line and stopped breathing. If Cassidy ever asks about room 13, tell her I am sorry I made her live beside a grave that was never buried. A sound escaped her, not quite a sob. Victor appeared in the doorway. She hadn't heard him come up. His eyes moved from her face to the letter. Leave, she said. He didn't. Cassidy, leave. His jaw tightened, but this time, he obeyed. He turned, but Cassidy spoke before he crossed the threshold. Did your father kill her? Victor stopped. His back remained to her for a moment. Then he turned around. I don't know. Would you tell me if he did? Yes. She laughed bitterly. Why? Because you're honorable? No. Then why? His eyes were dark and steady. Because you would know if I lied. Cassidy hated that he was right. She looked back at the letter. There's something under the office floor, she said. My mother wrote that if anything happened to her, the proof was where the ocean could still hear it. Victor's gaze sharpened. The office shares a wall with room 13. Cassidy stood too quickly, and the room tilted. Victor moved forward, then stopped himself before touching her. The restraint was so visible it felt like another kind of intimacy. I'm fine, she said. No, you're not. You don't know me. I know what shock looks like. And what do you know about grief? That landed. For the first time since he had walked into her motel, Victor looked away without strategy. The mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing something hollow beneath the power. My mother died when I was 15, he said. Cassidy hadn't expected that. She was murdered in our kitchen while my father negotiated downstairs. The apartment grew quiet. Victor's voice remained controlled, but something underneath it had turned raw. I found her before anyone else did. My father told me grief was a luxury. Men like us could not afford. Cassidy stared at him. And you believed him? Victor looked back at her. I became him. The words were so quiet they almost disappeared. For one dangerous moment, Cassidy saw him not as a mafia boss, not as the man who bought her motel, but as a boy standing in a blood-dark kitchen being taught to turn pain into power. Her anger did not vanish, but it changed shape. Victor noticed. He noticed everything. Do not pity me, he said. I wasn't. Good. I was trying to understand how someone becomes this cold. His mouth tightened. And? Cassidy held his gaze. I think cold is easier than lonely. The silence that followed was intimate enough to feel like a touch. Viktor stepped closer. Not much. Just enough that the air changed again. His hand lifted, as if he might brush a loose strand of hair from her cheek. He stopped before touching her. His fingers curled slowly into a fist. Cassidy felt the almost touch everywhere. From downstairs, Marco shouted, "Boss, movement at the back." Viktor's expression closed instantly. The man returned. "Stay here," he said. "No." His eyes flashed. Cassidy lifted her chin. "If the truth is in that room, I'm going with you." "Absolutely not. You bought the motel, you didn't buy me." Viktor stared at her, furious and something else. Afraid. Not for himself. For her. That realization unsettled them both. Finally, he stepped aside. "Stay behind me." Cassidy grabbed the letters and followed him. Room 13 waited at the end of the west hallway. The corridor was narrow, low-ceilinged, and lit by emergency lamps that washed everything in red. Snow pressed against the small windows, turning them opaque. The carpet smelled like damp salt and old secrets. Cassidy had avoided this hallway for years. Now Viktor walked in front of her with the calm of a man approaching a battlefield. His men stopped several feet back. The door to room 13 looked exactly as it always had. Dark wood, brass number, chain across the frame, warped from years of coastal air. Cassidy's hands shook as she removed the envelope from behind the old fire alarm panel. The brass key inside was colder than it should have been. Viktor looked at it, then at Heir. "You don't have to do this." Cassidy almost smiled. "Now you say that?" His expression did not change. "I should have said it sooner." The apology was not clean, not soft, but it was there. Cassidy slid the key into the first lock. The sound echoed down the hallway. One deadbolt. Then the second. Viktor removed the chain. Their hands brushed. Cassidy froze. So did he. Neither looked away. The moment was small, absurd, impossible under the circumstances. But the hallway seemed to hold it. Then something slammed into the back door downstairs. Viktor turned sharply. "Open it," he said. Cassidy pushed the door. Room 13 smelled like dust, salt, and something metallic beneath the rot. The curtains were nailed shut. Furniture sat beneath sheets. A bed. A chair. A cracked mirror. The wallpaper had peeled in long strips, revealing dark stains beneath. Cassidy stepped inside and felt her childhood split open. A flash of memory hit her. Her mother's hand over her eyes. A woman crying. Men shouting. Rain. A lullaby in Italian. Cassidy grabbed the wall. Viktor was beside her instantly, though he still did not touch her without permission. "What did you see?" She shook her head. "Someone was here. A woman. She knew my mother." Viktor moved to the far wall. "Your mother said where the ocean could hear it." Cassidy looked toward the floor near the window. Beneath the old carpet was a seam. Together, they pulled the furniture aside. Viktor used a knife to lift the rotted floorboard. Below it was a metal box wrapped in oilcloth. Cassidy knelt. Viktor caught her wrist gently before she opened it. "Wait." She looked at him. "If Voss wants this, it may be dangerous. Everything about you is dangerous." "Yes. At least this belongs to me." He released her. Cassidy opened the box. Inside were photographs, old cassette tapes, a ledger, a silver locket, and a birth certificate sealed in plastic. Her hands moved to the certificate first. Name: Cassia Elena Valenti. Mother: Elena Valenti. Father: blank. Cassidy stared at it. "That isn't my name." Viktor's voice was low. It was. Cassidy opened the locket. Inside was a photograph of her mother holding a baby. On the other side was a tiny picture of a man Cassidy did not recognize. But Viktor did. His face changed. Not slightly this time. Completely. "What?" Cassidy asked. Viktor took the locket from her hand like it might burn him. "That's my uncle." Cassidy's heart pounded. "Your uncle?" "Viktor DeLuca, my father's younger brother. He disappeared 10 years ago." Cassidy looked back at the birth certificate. Blank father. Her mother hidden. Room 13 sealed. Viktor's voice became very quiet. "Cassidy." She shook her head before he could say it. "No. Matteo may have been your father." "No. If he was, that means—" I said no. But the truth was already in the room with them. Cassidy Moore was not just the heir of the Valenti line. She was tied by blood to the DeLucas too. Do Viktor. Not closely enough to be family in the way that mattered, but close enough to make her existence dangerous. A bridge between two empires. A claim. A threat. A woman both families might kill to control. Before either of them could speak, the motel shook. An explosion burst somewhere near the back entrance. Cassidy fell forward, and Viktor caught her against him. This time, neither pretended the contact meant nothing. His arm locked around her waist. Her hands gripped his coat. Dust fell from the ceiling. Men shouted in the hall. Viktor looked down at her, his face inches from hers. "For once," he said, voice rough, "do not argue with me." Cassidy's breath trembled. "About what?" "Run." The fight moved through the breakwater like a storm inside a storm. Voss men breached the back hallway, while Viktor's men pushed them away from the lobby. Emergency lights flashed red over snow blowing through broken doors. Cassidy clutched the metal box to her chest, while Viktor pulled her through the service corridor behind the laundry room. Every few steps, he looked back, not to see if his men followed, to see if she was still there. It should not have made her feel anything. It did. They reached the old maintenance stairwell, but a man appeared at the bottom with a gun raised. Viktor moved before Cassidy could scream. The violence was fast, controlled, brutal without drama. Viktor disarmed him, struck once, and the man collapsed against the wall. Cassidy stared, horrified. Viktor looked at her. "Don't look at him." She swallowed hard. "You say that like I can unsee things." His expression tightened. "No. I say it because I don't want you carrying more than you already do." The line hit somewhere too deep. They ran. Outside, the storm swallowed them. A black SUV waited near the laundry exit, engine running, headlights off. Marco held the back door open. "Safe house," he said. "Now." Cassidy stopped. "No." Viktor turned. "Cassidy. The motel is lost for now. It's my home. It's a target." She looked back at the breakwater, half-lit, snow whipping around its broken windows. It looked wounded, like an old animal refusing to die. Then she saw flames flicker near the office. "No," she whispered. Voss was burning the motel. Viktor saw it too. Something in his face went dead. Not emotionless. Worse. Controlled rage. Marco stepped closer. "Boss, we have to go." Viktor looked at Cassidy. Her eyes were fixed on the flames. "My mother's letters," she whispered. "There are more upstairs." Viktor said nothing. Then he took the metal box from her and pushed it into Marco's hands. "Get her in the car." Cassidy snapped back to him. "What are you doing?" "Getting the letters." "No." He was already moving. Cassidy grabbed his sleeve. "Viktor, no." He looked down at her hand on his coat, then at her face. For the first time, she saw the full danger of what she had become to him. Not a responsibility. Not a witness. Not leverage. A wound he could not close. "I won't let him take one more piece of you," Viktor said. Then he ran back into the burning motel. Cassidy screamed his name. Marco caught her before she could follow. The next minutes stretched into something unbearable. Snow fell. Smoke rose. Men shouted near the road. Somewhere behind the motel, another shot cracked through the storm. Cassidy fought Marco until her strength gave out. Then she stood shaking beside the SUV, watching flames glow behind the upstairs windows, where she had once learned to braid her mother's hair. Finally, Viktor emerged through the smoke. His coat was burned at the sleeve. His face was streaked with ash. In one hand, he held a half-burned bundle of letters tied in blue thread. Cassidy broke away from Marco and ran to him. She stopped just short of touching him, because touching him felt like admitting something she was not ready to survive. Viktor held out the letters. His breathing was rough, but his face was calm. "Is this all?" Cassidy stared at him. "You could have died." "Yes. For letters. For you." Her throat closed. A shot shattered the SUV window beside them. Viktor grabbed Cassidy and shoved her down behind the vehicle. This time, when his arms came around her, she did not resist. The safe house was not a house. It was a glass and stone mansion hidden above a frozen cove, 20 miles down the coast, invisible from the main road. Black waves slammed against the rocks below. Inside, the rooms were warm, silent, and expensive in a way that made Cassidy feel like she had stepped into someone else's life. Viktor gave her a bedroom overlooking the ocean. He placed guards outside the door. Cassidy hated that. She also slept for 3 hours, because her body finally stopped pretending it was made of iron. When she woke, the storm had softened. A dress lay folded on the chair. Black. Simple. Elegant. Beside it was a note, in Viktor's handwriting. Et v. Et dut. I. Et 9. It. Et. I. Et. N. I. Your clothes smelled like smoke. Wear this or don't. No one enters unless you allow it. Cassidy stared at the note longer than she should have. Then she showered, dressed in the black dress, and followed the sound of voices downstairs. Viktor was in a candlelit dining room with Marco and 2 other men. The metal box sat open on the table. They stopped talking when she entered. Viktor looked at her. His gaze moved over the dress once, then returned quickly to her face. The restraint almost made her smile. Almost. What did you find? She asked. Viktor gestured to the table. The ledger names everyone who helped destroy the Valenti family. Judges, police chiefs, politicians, my father, Voss. Cassidy's chest tightened. And my mother? She was trying to expose them. Cassidy moved closer. Viktor picked up a photograph. It showed her mother standing beside a younger man with dark DeLuca eyes. Matteo. Cassidy touched the edge of the photo. She loved him, she whispered. Yes. How do you know? Because he looked at her the way foolish men look at the thing that can ruin them. Cassidy looked up. Viktor's eyes were already on her. The room went silent around them. Marco cleared his throat and suddenly found a reason to leave. The other men followed. Cassidy did not look away from Viktor. Is that what I am? She asked softly. A thing that can ruin you? Viktor's face was unreadable. You are evidence. The words hurt more than they should have. Cassidy stepped back. Of course. His jaw tightened. That isn't what I meant. It's what you said. Cassidy. No. Don't say my name like that after reminding me I'm useful. She turned to leave. Viktor's voice stopped her. You are the first thing in years I have wanted without knowing how to use. Cassidy froze. The admission hung between them, dark and dangerous. She turned slowly. Viktor looked almost angry at himself. I don't know what to do with that, he said. Her heart beat too fast. You could start by not owning my motel. He looked down. A long silence passed. Then he reached inside his jacket and removed the property transfer document. Cassidy stared. Viktor placed it on the table. I had my attorney change the ownership. She did not move. To who? To you. Cassidy looked at him. I bought it to control the evidence, he said. I'm giving it back because I was wrong. The words were simple, but for a man like Viktor, they cost something. Cassidy stepped toward the table, touched the document, and felt her eyes burn. Why? His voice was low. Because you were right. I take what I want. She looked at him. And I don't want your home unless you choose to let me stand inside it. The room became dangerously quiet. Cassidy felt the pull between them like a tide. He was still the man whose family had buried her mother's truth. Still the man who terrified rooms into silence. Still capable of violence. Still impossible to call safe. But he had walked into fire for her letters. He had returned what he stole. And he looked at her now like devotion was a language he had never learned, but was willing to bleed through the alphabet. Cassidy took one step closer. Viktor did not move. She lifted a hand toward his face, then stopped before touching him. Now she understood why he kept stopping. Some touches changed things. Some touches opened rooms that had been sealed for years. Her fingers brushed the ash-dark sleeve of his coat. Your arm, she said. It's nothing. Sit down. His brows drew together. That was not a request, she said. For a moment, he looked like no one in his life had ever spoken to him that way, and survived. Then he sat. Cassidy cleaned the burn on his forearm with supplies from a medical kit. His skin was hot beneath her fingers. His eyes stayed on her face the entire time. You keep staring at me, she said. I keep thinking you'll disappear. Her hands paused. The confession was too raw for his controlled voice. I'm right here, she said. For now. Cassidy looked up. Viktor's mask had slipped again. But this time, he did not try to put it back fast enough. There it was. Not softness. Fear. The great Viktor DeLuca, feared by cops and criminals and men with blood on their hands, was afraid of losing a woman he had known for less than 24 hours. Not because she was convenient. Because something in her had entered the locked room inside him and refused to leave. Cassidy finished wrapping his arm. Viktor caught her wrist before she pulled away. Gently. Always gently with her now. Though she knew gentleness was not his nature. Voss will come again, he said. I know. He will try to use what you are. What am I? Viktor's thumb moved once over her pulse. The daughter of a murdered woman. The heir to a buried name. The proof of my father's crime. His eyes lifted to hers. And the only person I cannot make myself walk away from. Cassidy's breath trembled. Before she could answer, a phone rang on the table. Viktor released her. The room changed instantly. He answered, listened. His face went colder with every second. Then he put the phone down. Cassidy already knew. What happened? Viktor looked at her. Was has Eddie? The video arrived 10 minutes later. Eddie sat tied to a chair inside an abandoned church. The kind that existed all over the Maine coast, old stone, broken windows, salt-stained wood. Forgotten by God and everyone else. His face was bruised. His eyes were terrified. Nikolai Voss stood behind him in a gray coat, smiling. Miss Moore, Voss said into the camera. Or should I say Valenti? I imagine you're learning many things tonight. Cassidy stood beside Viktor in the mansion's study, watching the screen with cold dread. Voss continued. Your mother was brave. Brave women are useful. Until they become inconvenient. Viktor's hand closed into a fist. Voss smiled wider. Bring the ledger and the girl to Street Agnes Church by midnight. Viktor, if you come with soldiers, the motel rat dies. If you don't come, I release the ledger without your edits and let the world know DeLuca blood helped bury the Valenti line. Cassidy whispered. He wants a trade. Viktor shoot the laptop. No. Cassidy turned to him. You don't know what I was going to say. Yes, I do. Eddie betrayed me, but he doesn't deserve to die. He made his choice. So did you when you went back for my letters. Viktor's eyes darkened. Do not compare yourself to him. I'm comparing the choice. No. You don't get to decide every life in the room. I do when yours is the one at risk. Cassidy stepped close. Anger and fear tangled in her chest. This is exactly why I can't trust you. That hit. Viktor went still. You protect me like I'm something you own. His voice dropped. That is not what this is. Then what is it? Silence. His eyes burned into hers. I don't know, he said finally. I only know that when bullets came through that lobby, every plan I had disappeared. Except keeping you breathing. Cassidy's throat tightened. That doesn't make it right. No, he said. It makes it true. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Cassidy said, I'm going to that church. Viktor's face hardened. No. If you lock me in this house, I'll never forgive you. The words changed him. She saw it. He could withstand hatred, fear, betrayal, blood. But not that. Not from her. Viktor turned away, his control visibly fraying. Then he swept a glass from the desk. It shattered against the fireplace. Cassidy flinched. He froze immediately. When he turned back, the rage was gone from his face, replaced by something worse. Shame. I won't hurt you, he said. I know. The answer surprised them both. Cassidy exhaled unsteadily. I'm afraid of what you'll do for me. Viktor looked at her for a long moment. Then his voice came quieter. So N.E. Street Agnes Church stood on a cliff above the frozen Atlantic, its steeple cracked, its windows boarded, its doors hanging crooked beneath snow and moonlight. At midnight, black SUVs rolled silently up the road with headlights off. But Viktor did not bring soldiers into the church. He brought only Cassidy. At least, that was how it looked. Cassidy knew better now. Viktor's world was made of shadows. If she could not see his men, that only meant they were exactly where he wanted them. Inside the church, candles burned along the broken aisle. Eddie sat near the altar, pale and shaking. Nikolai Voss stood beside him with 4 men. Voss was elegant in a cruel way. Silver hair. Soft gloves. A smile that never reached his eyes. His gaze moved to Cassidy. There she is, he said, Elena's little ghost. Cassidy felt Viktor's presence beside her change. Not moving. Not speaking. But ready. Voss noticed and laughed. Oh, Viktor. Don't tell me the rumors are true. That the great DeLuca has developed a heart at the worst possible moment. Viktor's voice was ice. Let him go. The ledger first. Cassidy held the metal box. Viktor had argued until the car door opened. Cassidy had won because the ledger was hers, and because Viktor had finally understood that protecting her could not mean erasing her choices. She stepped forward. Viktor's hand caught hers. Not to stop her. Just for 1 second. A silence question. Cassidy looked at him. She was afraid. She trusted him. Both were true. She walked to the altar and placed the box on the stone floor. Voss's eyes gleamed. Open it. Cassidy did. Voss knelt and lifted the ledger. For the first time, his smile became real. Then Cassidy said, You should read the last page. Voss paused. Viktor's eyes shifted to her. He did not know. Cassidy had found the page, while everyone prepared a page folded into the binding, written in her mother's hand. Voss opened the ledger to the back. His face changed. Cassidy's voice shook, but she kept speaking. My mother knew you would come for this. She knew Viktor's father helped you. She knew everyone involved. Voss looked up slowly. Cassidy swallowed. So she made copies. The church went silent. Voss's expression turned murderous. Cassidy continued. One went to my uncle. One went to a federal prosecutor. And one went inside the church bell. Have C. End of section. One went to my uncle. One went to a federal prosecutor. Voss's eyes shot upward. Viktor's gaze followed. Then he smiled. Not kindly. Proudly. Cassidy felt it like heat. Voss snarled, Kill them! The church erupted. Viktor moved Cassidy behind a stone column as shots shattered candles and splintered wood. His men struck from the shadows from the choir loft, the side chapel, the broken sacristy door. Cassidy crouched behind the column, heart hammering, as chaos tore through the abandoned church. Viktor fought like a man born from darkness. But when one of Voss's men broke through and grabbed Cassidy, everything changed. The man dragged her toward the side aisle. Cassidy fought, kicked, clawed, but he was stronger. Viktor saw. His face became something terrible. For 1 second, he looked less like a man than a storm-given flesh. He crossed the church through gunfire and falling glass, unstoppable. His entire world narrowed to the hands on Cassidy. The man released her before Viktor reached him. Too late. Viktor took him down with cold precision, then turned to Cassidy. Are you hurt? She shook her head. He touched her face with both hands, searching her eyes, her skin, her breath. Viktor. He didn't seem to hear. Viktor. I'm okay. Only then did he breathe. Behind him, Voss grabbed the ledger and ran toward the crypt stairs. Cassidy saw him first. He's going down. Viktor looked at her, torn for half a second between chasing Voss and staying with her. Cassidy pressed her hand over his. End it. His eyes held hers. Then he nodded once. Stay with Marco. Viktor. He stopped. She didn't know what she meant to say. Be careful sounded too small. Don't die sounded too honest. So she said, Come back. Something broke open in his face. I will. Then he disappeared into the crypt. Cassidy did not stay with Marco. Not because she was foolish. Because she saw Eddie slip his restraints and stumble after Viktor with a knife hidden in his sleeve. Betrayal had a sound, Cassidy realized. It was not loud. It was the quiet scrape of a scared man choosing himself again. She followed. The crypt beneath Street Agnes was narrow and wet, carved into old stone beneath the cliff. Candles burned in iron holders. Ocean water echoed somewhere below. She reached the lower chamber, just as Viktor cornered Voss beside a stone altar. Voss held the ledger in one hand. You think she'll forgive you? Voss spat. Your father signed the order. Your bloodline destroyed hers. Viktor's face was calm, but his eyes were lethal. She doesn't need to forgive me for me to protect her. Voss laughed. You love her. The words struck the chamber like thunder. Viktor did not deny it. Cassidy stopped breathing. Voss smiled. How tragic. The one woman who should hate you most. Behind Viktor, Eddie raised the knife. Cassidy screamed. Viktor turned, but Eddie was already lunging. Cassidy moved without thinking. She threw herself between them, slamming into Eddie's arm. The knife cut across her shoulder instead of Viktor's back. Pain flashed white. Viktor caught her as she fell. The chamber vanished into his voice. Cassidy. Not cold. Not controlled. Broken. Eddie dropped the knife, horrified. I didn't mean... Viktor looked up. Whatever Eddie saw in his face made him back away in terror. Voss used the moment to run. But Viktor did not follow. He pressed his hand against Cassidy's shoulder, his face pale beneath the candlelight. Stay with me, he said. Cassidy tried to breathe through the pain. It's not bad. Do not lie to me. You do it all the time. A devastated laugh almost escaped him, but it turned into something raw. I need help, he shouted. His voice cracked through the crypt. The feared Mafia Boss of the East Coast knelt on a wet stone floor, holding a motel receptionist like the world had ended in his arms. Cassidy lifted her uninjured hand to his face. This time, she touched him. His eyes closed for half a second. I came back, she whispered. His forehead lowered to hers. You were supposed to let me protect you. I did. No. Yes, she breathed. I protected the part of you that still gets to live after this. Viktor looked at her like she had wounded him deeper than the knife ever could. Marco arrived with men and medical supplies. The cut was painful, but not fatal. Viktor did not move more than a few inches from Cassidy the entire time. Voss escaped into the storm with the ledger, but not with the truth, because while he fled with old paper, Viktor's men climbed the bell tower and found the copies hidden exactly where Elena Valenti had promised. By sunrise, the names of every man who had buried her family were no longer secrets. 3 weeks later, the Breakwater Motel reopened under a gray winter sky. Not as it had been. The old sign had been restored, the broken windows replaced, the lobby rebuilt with dark wood, warm lamps, and framed black and white photographs of the coast. Room 13 was no longer sealed. Cassidy had turned it into a memorial. No bed, no curtains nailed shut. Just candles, flowers, her mother's photograph, and a brass plaque that read, "For every woman they tried to erase." The scandal had torn through the East Coast like fire. Judges resigned. Police chiefs vanished. Politicians denied everything until recordings appeared. The Voss family fractured. Nikolai Voss disappeared into whatever dark corner men like him crawled toward when truth found them. Viktor's father was gone too. Not dead. Worse, in Viktor's world. Exposed. Stripped of power. Abandoned by men who had once feared him. Viktor never told Cassidy exactly what happened the night he confronted him. Cassidy never asked for details. Some doors did not need to be opened to know what they contained. On the night of the reopening, snow fell softly over the parking lot. The lobby glowed gold against the blue winter dark. Guests came and went. Locals pretended not to stare at the black SUV parked across the street. Cassidy stood behind the front desk, wearing a cream sweater, her healing shoulder hidden beneath soft fabric. She checked in a couple from Vermont, handed them a key, and smiled when they complimented the renovation. After they left, the bell above the door jingled. Viktor stepped inside. No convoy this time. No wall of men. Just him. Black coat. Dark eyes. Snow on his shoulders. The lobby seemed to remember him. So did Cassidy. He walked to the desk and placed a small brass key on the counter. Room 13. Cassidy looked at it, then at him. "I thought you gave all the keys back." "I did." "Then what's this?" "The last copy." Her throat tightened. Viktor's voice was quiet. "I kept it because I wanted an excuse to come back." Cassidy stared at him. "You don't need an excuse." His expression shifted. Carefully. Slowly. Like hope was more dangerous than war. "No? No." He looked down at the key. "I don't know how to be harmless, Cassidy. I didn't ask you to be harmless." His eyes lifted. "But I need you to be honest." He nodded once. "Yes. And I need choices." "You have them. Even when you're afraid?" His jaw tightened. "Especially then," his silence said. But he answered aloud. "Especially then." Cassidy came around the desk. For once, there was no gunfire. No storm breaking windows. No secrets burning under the floor. Just snow. A motel lobby. A dangerous man learning how to stand still without controlling the room. Cassidy stopped in front of him. Viktor did not touch hair. He waited. That waiting nearly broke her. She lifted her hand and brushed snow from his shoulder. His breath changed. "You once told me you take what keeps people alive," she said. His eyes held hers. "I was wrong." Cassidy tilted her head. Viktor took the brass key and placed it in her palm. Then he closed her fingers around it with both hands. "I protect what chooses to stay." Cassidy's eyes burned. Outside, the ocean moved black and endless beyond the motel lights. The past was not gone. Men like Viktor did not become gentle overnight. Women like Cassidy did not stop being afraid just because love entered the room. But fear was not the only thing between them anymore. There was trust. Fragile. Earned. Still trembling. Viktor leaned closer, stopping just before his forehead touched hers. Cassidy closed the final distance. Their foreheads met. His eyes closed. The man who made cities lower their voices stood in the lobby of a motel he had once tried to take, holding the hand of the woman who had refused to open room 13. And for the first time in his life, Viktor DeLuca did not look like a man who had won. He looked like a man who had been saved. Cassidy whispered, "Stay for coffee?" His mouth softened, almost a smile. "Is that an order?" She looked up at him. Yes, the great Mafia Boss of the East Coast, feared by cops, kings, and killers, lowered his head with quiet devotion. "Then I'll stay." Behind them, the key to room 13 rested on the front desk beneath the warm lobby light. No longer a warning. No longer a wound. A choice. And outside, as snow covered the tire tracks of every black SUV that had ever come to claim her, Cassidy Moore finally locked the door against the storm. Not because she was hiding anymore, but because, for the first time, she had decided who was allowed inside.